Hello and welcome back to the channel. It's Mark from Powersonic and Apprentice 121. For those of you who watched the last video, you will know where I am. I'm in this cupboard again. We did an EICR here. This consumer unit, among other things, needs replacing. We're going to get on with that now. The brand I've chosen for this consumer unit swap is Verso, and that's because I saw they are sponsoring the guys over at Monday Club. I saw Sam talking about the quality of the box and the product on his channel, so I thought I would give it a go, see what I think, and report back on my YouTube channel for you guys and girls watching. I've just taken it out of the delivery box now, and I have got to say, as Sam says on the podcast, it is actually a very nice box. I was laughing at him when he said it, trying to make on that the box was somehow extra quality to what you would normally find, but it is a decent box, very much like a shoe box that you get trainers delivered in. So for once, Sam is right. First out the top of the box is the label sheet. Those of you who watch my channel will know I don't often use these anyway, we print our own, but in this case I'm going to use them just to see if we've got everything we need in the box. It's always handy to know that you know what you're getting supplied with. If you've forgot your label printer or whatever, you can get the job done. Straight out the box itself is a nice solid consumer unit, and I have to say a lot of these are much of a muchness in the sense that they're just a rectangular white box. Trying to sell them apart from each other based on that is a very difficult thing to do. But the metal is good quality, it's pressed, and there's plenty of knockouts on it. Usually they come with knockouts off the shelf from the wholesalers, so that's what I've ordered in this case. I did order it from Alert Electrical, and again, not a paid or sponsored video, I bought this myself. Not been gifted it, and I'm going to give an honest opinion on it. I've gone for the 14-way board with a main switch and SPD, you can see in there. So we've got the SPD and its B32 protective device that this SPD requires. We'll get it on the wall, we'll talk a bit more about it. Obviously we're going to have to use a tails gland, and yeah, we'll talk more about that as the video moves along rather than wasting too much time waffling out on it now. I did want to talk a little bit about the RCBOs and AFDD. So they come in nice individual boxes. I'm hoping there's going to be no plastic in here because that's a bugbear of mine when stuff comes wrapped in plastic as well, and it's nice to see that there isn't. Only downside that I can see, and I noticed this when I was ordering, is that they're not mini, so I don't know if Verso do a mini version of their RCBOs, but the tall ones now are frustrating when you come to use them, having experienced the extra wiring room from using minis, but it's not a deal breaker. It was around 11 quid plus VAT, I think just under actually for the RCBOs. So in terms of value, they are right up there with Skullmore Illusion. They retail at about that price, slightly cheaper than CP Fuse box as well. We'll talk more about the quality of them and the ins and outs of the product standard and stuff as I'm installing them, but I just thought I'd show you that it is one of the tall RCBOs. The AFDDs, and this is an entirely new one on me, I've never seen an AFDD from Verso online or other because there wasn't actually a picture of it when I ordered it. You'll see there again, it's the tall size. Just compare it to the RCBO, I expect it's pretty similar. So yeah, it's almost an identical footprint to the RCBO. And again, we'll talk about that as we're installing it. It's very much of the appearance of an RCBO with the test button, you can see on there, and the little window that has the LEDs in it. And we're going to use this one on the kitchen circuit. Now, the intention is this property is been sold. It's not been re-rented, but it was a rental property. And I think with the changing the regulations, well, it's not so much a change, but a redefinition of what recommended actually means to a should, I think there's a strong argument that in terms of white goods within a kitchen, it makes a lot of sense to be fitting AFDDs anyway. And this was about £80, so it's among the lower priced options for AFDDs as far as I'm aware. You'll have seen on the channel I've installed some Hager, Schneider and Electrium ones already, so AFDDs are a new product on me as a whole. But we'll see how these ones go in the board and what they do. I have noticed there's no instruction or product manual in the box that I can see, unless I'm missing something under a little flap at the bottom. Just have a little check. No, there's nothing in there. So we'll have to have a look and see how these work. I assume there'll be a manufacturer's website with the details on. Yeah, there is. There's a website listed there, so we'll go and check that out and see if it tells us anything else about the product. That said, let's get this stripped out now. Got to get all this off the board. Pablo's come in to fit me an isolator, so we'll see what happens there and what they leave us with, and then we can get on with swapping this and sticking our new board in. Of course, in the wider install, I've got a couple of pendants to swap. There's the bonding to upgrade and other bits and pieces that we covered on the last video. You can take it as given that they are all been done. Obviously, we need to be making this install satisfactory now, but we're going to focus in on just this little part of it for the video. Catch up with you in a bit. Okay, so I've got the Verso board on the wall. I thought I'd drop in and just show you where we're up to. The trunking's underneath. I've got some grommet stuffing glands between the trunking and the board, and my tails are in. All my final circuits are in. It's been a bit of a faff trying to get them because I've moved them from down here, where they were slightly surrounded by pipework and inaccessible, to up here, so it's a bit easier for someone to come in and operate. It's kind of chest height rather than down on your hands and knees, surrounded by pipes that have obviously had some sort of leaking going on at some stage. So I thought, while we're on with it, let's get it shifted up somewhere a bit nicer for the next person to come along and use. Tails are in. Really impressed with this gland on the Verso board. Seems a much more robust one than you get in some of the other boards. Definitely the Illusion and CP fuse boxes. I like that. That's a nice touch. Plenty of entry points, as I'd said earlier on in the video. That's kind of where we're up to at the minute. So yeah, there's really not much else I can say for the time being. I'm going to get on with putting the RCBOs in and the AFDD. We'll strip all this lot back and get it dressed away. I've had to use 25mm earth on this board because the 16mm drum that I thought I put in the van this morning was 25. So we've used a pin crimp on there. I'm happy that that's nice and tight and a sound earthing connection. We'll see what value of ZE we got, as long as you make sure you use appropriate crimps when you're terminating into these terminal bars, because obviously they have a rated size capacity, so a max size. I haven't checked with a Verso board, but it's usually about 16mm. I have seen people bodging between two terminals, which is really rough, not something I would recommend. So I popped a little pin crimp on. That's the reason that's a bit bigger than you might have been expecting. But otherwise, I'm going to get on with this now. We'll get it dressed away and I'll jump back on and talk about how it was to fit in just a sec. Okay, we've got the board dressed away now. I've got to say, quite impressed with it. There's plenty of room, even considering the height of these RCBOs. As I mentioned, they're not the mini variants. I'm not sure if you can get Verso mini RCBOs. They could already be available, and just the retailer I use didn't have them. But it is still irritating that you don't get the wiring room you're perhaps used to when you use other brands who have moved over to the mini RCBOs. I'm sure Verso will get there in the end if they're not already, so it's not a deal breaker for me. And again, the price point on these is, from my perspective, I think it's one of the better value RCBOs out there. Obviously, I haven't given these any kind of testing over the fullness of time, but having followed some of the other guys on social media, Cablesmith and JB, for example, I know that these are decent bits of kit because they say they are, and they are people whose word and opinion I value. So I'm going to trust at that stage. And again, William from Verso's taken me through all of this, so I'm very happy to provide this equipment to my clients. There is a really good buzz bar on the bottom of here. I know sometimes it seems silly, but it's the little things that are nice. It's really solid. It's covered all the way along. I think it's silver tinted or whatever you call it. I don't know. I'm sure I remember Sam saying that on the podcast when he was reviewing the board. I need to check in the literature and see. Other point of note around these is the terminal bars at the top are really sturdy and secure. Sometimes on some of the budget boards especially, these are a little bit wappy and flimsy as you're terminating into them. These are really solid. They've got good plastic shielding all around them. I like the way that they're laid out, and the numbering's very clear in the board already. You don't have to apply your own labels as some of the other kits have. Really nice touch. The SPD breaker sits straight on the buzz bar at the end of the board, so it's out the way, not before the main switch, which can affect wiring space where the tails come in sometimes. So that was a nice feature as well. Plenty of room down the back of the board. I've tucked lots of cable down there for the next person coming along testing, so there's loads of space in there as well. The RCBO fly leads are crimped on the ends, ready to go, so there's no messing about with them. They're plenty long enough for working inside these boards, but as is often a complaint with some other products, if you were to ever use them in a three-phase board, and I don't think Verso currently offer a three-phase solution. Again, I could be wrong on that, so apologies if I'm getting that wrong. You wouldn't be able to reach over to all the neutral bars within those with that product. But again, these are the 6K variants, so those of you familiar with domestic stuff from most of the manufacturers, all rated at 6K. And these are the same. You've got your test button on the RCBOs, 30 milliamp Type A, as you would expect. And the AFDD is the same, Type A, 6K, 30 milliamp. Point of note with this, and it caught me out after I got 3 RCBOs in, and it's not a criticism of the product, it's just me being stupid, but the neutral and the line are the opposite way around on the AFDD terminals to the RCBOs. So I'd just obviously seen the blue and brown on these and carried on wiring away until I got so far and looked that it was saying N on the left-hand side and not L. So point of note, if you're wiring those, keep your mind onto that. I don't think these are switch neutral. I need to put my glasses on and have a proper look at the diagram on the front to determine that, but I'm pretty sure the solid neutral these ones. So if you're doing your EV charge points, something to keep your eye on. There is a QR code on here. I'm hoping it leads off to some product information on the Verso website, so I can go off and have a look at that and maybe get some manuals for all these things, because they don't come with any in the box. And that's fair enough. These days we're all looking to save the environment and reduce our use of paper and such where we can. As long as that's available on the Internet of Things, then I've no issue with that whatsoever. They come with the knockouts in the back, which is a nice feature, because again, any of you who use Hager boards will know you have to order those separately. So that's very nice that they throw those in there. Also plenty of grommet strip for if you're needing to use any on the gland holes, for example, or you didn't want to use their entry plate on the back. That's nice. You've got the pin covers for the buzz bar. Again, I've got the proper Verso blanks in there to give them full coverage, which is really nice. I've not taken an especially long time dressing this way. I've spent about an hour on it. It's not the neatest job I've ever done in the world, but it's plenty tidy enough. And like I say, there's lots of cable length on everything. You can see the CPCs swoop off to the right, and they're all tucked away. So the next person coming along to test has got lots of space and wire to work with. And the same behind here, there's plenty tucked down so people can pull the conductors forward and do their testing. Screw caps on the back as normal. So those of you who watch the channel a lot will know I use these screw caps in the back of consumer units. Got them in there again. I need to go through this now and dead test it, make sure we were all back as we were before we started. Obviously then we can get things energized and do some live testing and ensure the installation is as safe as it was, or better, hopefully, than before I started. And then I've got to get on and sort out some of these other issues in the place. There's those lights in the kitchen that needs replacing, there's a dimmer switch in the front room, there's the pendants upstairs, the bonding to sort out. I'm going to get on with all of that. I'm not going to show it on the video because I don't want this to drag on too long and end up being another 45-minute of editing for me. We'll try and keep it short and sweet on this and focus on the board. I have got the Milwaukee pack-out light on the go down here. I did have my Unilight head torch and the Unilight sticks on the go, but they all died after an hour or so. So I've reverted back to this. It has got a 12 amp hour battery in it because that's the only Milwaukee one I had with me. And I expect if I left that on down there, it would run for about a week with that in. You really can't go wrong with your Power Tool brand battery torches. This goes on my pack out trolley. So when I'm on site, I think I've shown it before. I've got it in the bottom of this cupboard here, but if I wanted, I could have put it on the old trolley and brought it round and had the light shone in where I wanted, but you know, I've got the tools in there, couldn't be bothered to push it through, so it's just gone on the floor in the bottom of the cupboard. Still got a bit of sorting out to do in here now. I've got to rewire the boiler. Obviously that's a bit of a mess down here with the open gland holes that no one noticed on the last video. I had a little giveaway on that if anyone spotted it, but it was missed. No hardship in that, it was just a bit of fun. Other people got some of the other stuff that was missed in there as well. Obviously this is a really difficult one because we've got all of this pipe work. Look at it. That's another reason I moved that board. It was just surrounded by pipes I mentioned earlier on and potential leakage. Same up here. There's literally no space in this cupboard where there is no pipes. So it had to go where it's gone. I really would prefer to be further away from all of that. The gas pipe's down the bottom, so we're well away from all of that. It's going to be fun getting the tails past these pipes and down into the isolating switch that Pablo's fitted. It's funny actually because he looked a lot like James, who works with Chris at CJR. I don't know if you watch his channel, but he has a guy called Pablo come and do his isolators when he's swapping boards. He looks exactly like James. Anyway, did a cracking job. Got an isolator on there. We can get the tails wired in now. I still need to redress these. I can see there's a bit of copper sticking out the top there I'm not happy with. So I'm going to get that neatened up. And yeah, we'll move on with things. I've got all the rubbish on the floor that those of you who swap consumer units will be familiar with. It all ends up piling out everywhere. So I'm going to sort that out, nip these last little bits up. And then we'll jump back on and see this labelled up. I'll get all the labels on the front. We'll get it energised. We'll see what the flashing lights on the front of the AFDD look like and mean. And yeah, we'll have a little chat about it all at the end and pull it together. Catch up with you in a sec. Okay, so we can start off by scanning this Verso QR code, if my phone will play ball. It takes you off to the AFDD guide. Now in here it gives you all the technical specification of the AFDD, and it will explain to us exactly what this product's rated for, its dimensions, all the other bits of goodness we need to know as electricians before we install it. Mechanical operations that you can expect in a usable life frame, its operating temperature, its IP rating, all the usual bits and pieces. And then the exciting bit, or certainly the bit you need to know to understand what the flashing lights on the AFDD mean. If you've got a steady red light, you've got a short circuit, an overload or an earth fault. If you've got one flash every 10 seconds, one flash every second, then you've got a series arc or a parallel arc fault. If it's flashing 2 times per second, your voltage has gone over 275 volts. And if it's 5 times per second, then you've got a defective AFDD. So that's in there as well. Handy bits of information. Like I say, all the torque values and everything on the product itself is written on it. They're roughly 2 Newton meters. You need to make sure you put those in place. Let's have a look at it all buttoned up and see the final conclusions. I don't know what this thing is. It's been looking at me all day with this hosey thing. I've no idea how it works. I've seen it on a few other tradespeople's social medias. If anyone knows what this is, let me know, because I'd like to be able to figure out how to use it first and foremost. It obviously does something. For those of you who watched the EICR video, you will have remembered this dimmer switch was broken. That's now been replaced for a simple white plastic switch. And we have the lights back on in the front room. Upstairs, I've swapped that pendant. We'll speak about that in a minute. We've got the lights working over in the kitchen now, which is fantastic. And the bonding's all been sorted and other such bits and pieces around the intake with a boiler spare. We're all good to go there now. The lighting circuit upstairs, it shows the importance sometimes of doing an R1, R2 test. You don't necessarily have to on an EICR. But we did one and we found we had a very high value of R1, R2 on that circuit because of some corrosion on some terminals. And we were able to verify it was a problem through the course of our ZS testing, which was less upset about that corrosion in the joint. It just shows you the difference that those measurements will give you and why it's important rather than excluding one over the other. Perhaps sometimes we can do both. When the spider senses are tingling, you'll see the AFDD lights illuminated there. We've been testing that for the old RCD trip times. These are very good response. They're going out sort of 20-25 milliamps as you'd expect. They're not going to be bang on the 30 milliamp. That's the maximum tripping current they will allow. So as long as we're under that, not to the point that it's like 1 or 2 milliamps, then you're in business. Obviously, we've got a maximum of 9 milliamps leakage current we're allowed on any circuit that's occurring within it anyway. So we've got plenty of uplift to be able to accommodate that. The lid went on like a glove. That's something that installers are always frustrated with. I know other brands that I avoid because the lids will not go on nicely. However hard you try in dressing them away, the MCBs, RCBOs and AFDDs just sag down a little bit and it doesn't quite line up as it should. None of that with this board. It's gone on an absolute treat. I've popped all the labels on just in case this is rented out. We're under the stairs. I didn't see the harm of putting them on there. I'm going to put our service mate QR code onto the handover pack that we all have to give now anyway. We've got the Verso QR code for the AFDD. But this is handy for if they're renting it out and there's an occupant living here who maybe doesn't have access to that or knows how to work the internet. Not everybody is up to speed with these things. Simple labels, it does the job, doesn't it? I don't see the fuss with all of that, to be fair, unless it's out in the open as an eyesore. You might as well just pop a label on and it shows quite clearly what is going on. Otherwise, very impressed with that board. I cannot knock it whatsoever. I think it's excellent value. I got mine from Alert Electrical. I use Cablesmith's discount code. So if you're not aware of that, Cablesmith, who's also over on YouTube, link in the description, he has got a discount code for Alert Electrical. I think it was supposed to be 10%, but it ended up being something different for some bizarre reason. I think now it might actually be 5% from speaking to the guys and girls at Alert, but go and check that out. Verso are all over social media, so I'll drop links to their stuff in the description as well. The Instagram channel they have and the Twitter account. Also, they have a fantastic YouTube channel. That is something that isn't just there for product information. They've spoken about stuff to do with Amendment 2 and AFDDs and things that electricians are going to need to know. William Winter's the star of the show over on there. They're well worth watching even if you're not interested in the products at all. So I recommend you go and check that out. And again, in the links below. Thanks to the guys over at Monday Club for talking about this stuff. Wouldn't have heard it a bit otherwise. It's something I can now offer to my customers as an option. Definitely right up there alongside and then maybe even above Illusion and CP Fusebox and such. Really can't knock it as an overall package based on quality and value. We'll see over the fullness of time if there's any issues within there. We've just seen the recall that CP Fusebox had on their AFDDs, which is something that worries a lot of electricians. I'm still burnt to the soul from Electricum Wilex in the early 2000s with their MCB recall program that happened. It's not a nice thing to have to go through when you've got to run around swapping all this stuff. So I'm hopeful AFDDs are not a ticking time bomb for us in the future, because even if they need updating by Bluetooth, like the Hager ones, you still have to go and do it. It's just as annoying as going to swap the damn things. So it's something to keep an eye on for sure. If you've got any questions around the install that you want to ask me, please drop them in below. I did have a little giveaway running from the last video on the EICR for those of you who might have spotted one or two things that I did kind of show but not speak about. That didn't happen, but there's no great dramas. We'll carry it over to something else. Speaking about giveaways, Stephen Wilton over on LinkedIn dropped over the idea of raising some money for a tool drop for apprentices through Apprentice 1-to-1. He did the same last year, bought 6 safe isolation kits, I think, from TIS to give to apprentices. He's put £500 in the pot. I've put some of my own money in alongside him. A few other people have jumped in as well, and we've got up to over £2,000 now. We've also got the support of TIS and Nipex, who are going to give us a few freebies mixed in with some discounted orders, should we wish to take advantage of them. And if there are any other retailers or manufacturers watching this who want to be involved, your support would be appreciated. I don't make any money from this, never have done. Any social media activity that I get involved with all goes towards Apprentice 1-to-1, all ends up supporting people in education and training to be electricians. That is what my social media presence is all about. It's not about making me money or selling training courses or whatever else as other people have suggested. It's nonsense. Yeah, just a little look around, I guess. We'll sign this one off as finished. Still need to figure out what that thing is. It's really annoying me. It's one of those where you know you've used something like that before, maybe as a kid. But yeah, I really want to know, so please do get involved in the comments. And if you haven't already, give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Subscribe to the channel. Try and help me spread these things as far as possible, because obviously the more people watching, the more the channel can grow. It's one of my passions and hobbies now around the electrical industry, making these things. I do it for fun, but it's nice to know that people are getting some value for it and watching it, and seeing the views and subscribers grow on a weekly basis now is really encouraging and exciting. So thank you very much to everyone who has already done that. It means a lot, and I really do honestly appreciate it. Till the next time, I will see you again. If you do have any ideas for videos you'd like me to cover, please drop them in below. Some other people have already made some suggestions, which are really cool. Shorts was one, making more shorts. I've been trying to put a few of those out. They're actually really difficult to edit. I've just realised that beeping in the background that is so annoying. It was annoying all the way through the last EICR video. It's still going, and I need to sort the smoke alarms out before we go, which I can get on with now. Catch you on the next one.